You are listening to the Firecracker podcast with Tony Rico.
All right. Special day for us here at Firecracker Town. Mike, last time I got you in here, and I felt like I kind of hit you out of left field.
Yeah,
I know, and I went back and forth, and neither will I. But gosh, awesome to have. So we've got Mike Stith, president of the Batbusters, with us in the studio today. And if I think of what it took for this to happen and kind of the roads that we've both been on, and this really is a special day for me because I try to grow as a person and try to preach those things. So what did it take for us to get in the same room and be able to just kind of talk about where we're at? So really glad to have you here. But
thanks, Tony. And it just comes down to doing more things together, finding out, they do look at things similarly.
Right.
How to hold a glove or how to move your feet is one thing, but how to deal with people and treat people, that's
there's a story here.
Yeah.
And if it's entertaining, listen, and if not, turn it off, go to the fridge, make yourself a sandwich, go watch some television or something about that. But appreciate you coming down. I wanted to kind of go through a little bit of history and then kind of really what it's about is the future, and some ideas that you and I have been sharing and kind of the process of our relationship. But, for a lot of people, like my relationship goes back, and I think my first experience was an exit from Nationals in Marietta. I don't know if we played each other before then, but you were with Tough Enough back then. So how'd you get sucked in? So you have daughters, so is that the obvious?
Yeah. Like most, it was funny. I spoke at the NFCA convention up in Portland last week, and one of my subjects was creating your coaching path from the Little League to the MPF, and went through my daughters and doing all that stuff. I was a dad, just like most people.
It starts like that for so many coaches.
Yeah. And you get sucked in. My dad was president of Whittier Girls Softball back in the 70s, so I grew up on the softball field.
And you had football background?
Yeah. Yep. I was a high school football coach, played football at St. Paul High School, locally here. And that's where I developed my intensity, my colorful language at times, and my focus to detail.
Well, and I want to get back to that because one of the things that I think for you as well to empower our coaches in our organization and really all people is how to show them how to have success, because you fast forward it a lot. And we see a lot of coaches that are ambitious and they want certain things, but getting there is another thing. So your oldest daughter wants to play softball, and here you go, and boom, boom. And now it's,
well, when I was coaching at St. Paul, I had my first daughter, and my wife told me that, this football stuff isn't going to work out. That was the day when you'd get paid $600 to work from April until Christmas, and you were supposed to be happy with that.
Right.
And that wasn't going to work. We worked 18 hours a day, never stopped. We were very successful, but reality sets in. So
So when Deanna had mentioned that to you, did you kind of or usually when she speaks, you're like, okay.
Well, you have a relationship with your wife. It goes beyond, I'm going to do it my way. Well, no, at a certain point, you plus you see the value. And going to softball was not going into foreign territory. It wasn't like I was going to do piano lessons or something.
Right.
I was very familiar with what I was doing. Right. It was in a similar field, coaching, and and I loved my kids. I mean, we had a good time doing it.
So, what'd you think when you started coaching softball? What was your impressions? Were you like,
Well, my first impression was I'm in the draft. My first year, I have an 8-and-under team, and I got Napoleon Sparks and Mike Smith in there telling me to take these kids, and they didn't give me any pitching. I had to draft kids that didn't know how to play, and we lost every game that year. But halfway,
people need to hear this. I love it.
Yeah. And for people that don't know, Knapp and Mike Smith ran Crunch, very successful. Knapp was somebody I looked up to when I came through this. I watched his teams; they were very good. But you figure out, so halfway through the year when we're like 0-8, I'm looking around, I'm going, okay, I got to get a pitcher. So I went and I watched the 10-and-unders. I watched the 9-year-old pitchers in the 10-and-unders. I befriended a mom who had the pitcher, and we won every game the next year.
Are you guys listening out there? All right, you coaches. I mean, that's a common starting point for a lot of people.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
And when you mentioned 8-and-under draft,
crazy, but it's reality. And but here again, we don't change. We evolve, but we don't really change too much. We are who we are.
Well, that common denominator, like how many players, when I ask players on our team now, how many of you pitched at 10 and under?
All
how
of
many
them.
Played shortstop at 10? So they're all, they all warm up like pitchers before practice anyway. So it's really the evolution, but the common denominator. And I think, again, part of that story is so great for coaches to hear. It's like, what? Steve went 0-8, like he's, and stuff like that. So y'all, I think this is a great sport, the baseball, softball, for anybody that has an adequate or an abundance amount of self-confidence, because we can just sit back and go, we don't need to humble them. The game's going to do it eventually.
It does take care of itself.
Because it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it does.
So coached your daughters coming up, and then when did travel ball enter?
Like many, we had a very successful all-star run. I had a young team in 10 and under. And back then, 10 and under travel wasn't a big deal. There wasn't any ASA sanctioned events or anything for 10 and under, which I thought was good. I still don't know if it's a good idea, but we did the 10 and under all-star game. And I will tell everybody my first 10 and under all-star team, the first tournament we played was at a park in Chino. And my first opponent was Corona All-Stars, coached by Marty Tyson.
Get out of here.
Marty and I coached the first All-Star game against each other, and the screaming and yelling and the craziness that you can imagine. It was both of us going head to head, and that hasn't changed a bit. It has not changed a bit.
I would pay for that to watch.
It was classic. And then he separated, did the same thing I did. He formed a team called Gold Rush, and then I formed Tough Enough, based off the nucleus of that all-star team.
So this is 90...
This was about 95, right in there.
So you formed Tough Enough.
Yep.
Then out.
Yeah.
So any other coaches help you start that? Was it your family? Was that...
Well, Daryl Pratt, who was my dad's really good friend from Whittier Girls Softball, they had coached together for years. His granddaughter was coming through the system, Brittany Pudich. And it was just a natural fit. And what was really good, I didn't know this at the time, when Daryl was with me, obviously he was a good friend of my dad. He taught me a lot. I came off the football field, and I was known for throwing equipment, screaming and yelling, and I did my share of that. I had somebody that was always looking over my shoulder telling me, like, he never did it on the field in front of people, but he would, you can't do that. You can't do that. Hey, Mike, you can't do that. And little did I know at that time, he allowed me to reflect. So it allowed me to step back, and sometimes I would say things, and it gave me a sense of self-awareness. Like you pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah. So give me a ballpark age for you about
I'm 56.
No, but when this was taking place.
30, 35.
Yeah, because this is important, I think, for our coaches.
Yeah.
Because I talked to them about the transition of your mindset when you're a combat soldier and you want to do all the fighting and you're ready, and then all of a sudden you look like Fred Sanford. You're the old guy you want to, and there's this transition.
Do they even know Fred Sanford is?
Well, so for three of you, because we're older than now most of the parents that are on our teams. But that's important to understand that, because even players, like they may hear things from us and you don't get it when you're younger. No. Later on down the road, you kind of realize what happened. But to our coaches, I want them to understand that too, because I talk about checks and balances in the dugout. Like who can check you? Yeah. Who can you trust when they say, hey, so if your wife can say in the car, hey, that's enough, Your Honor, enough, or in the dugout, it's like, hey, I had a defining moment like that. And I think that's important, because it definitely factors into a better balance later on down the road.
I had Danny Murakami. Danny is still coaching. He's with the I believe the Irvine Sting. He helps with them at times. Mm-hmm. He was another guy that, from a deep Japanese culture, very respectful person, taught me a lot. I was lucky to have people around me that kind of kept me in check a little bit and helped me grow. So
really
it was a big deal.
Yeah, and I think they need to know that they're part of that story and evolution as well, because my gosh, I tell our coaches, if I can do this, every single one of you can.
Pretty much.
Like there's nothing, whatever. So real quick with this, I thought of this. That intensity that leads teams. So whether you're a quarterback or whether you're a coach, and I try to explain to people, it's like you read a John Wooden book, and it's not about his plays and his playing intensity. They're really about the values and principles of how he lived life. But if you see footage of him coaching and kind of how he was in that moment, and it's really the top and bottom layer that he creates with his players. So it's not always just about that high-end intensity of in the moment, but part of going somewhere where people have never been before, you need someone to take you there. And so being that person, I always laugh when I think of like Reggie Jackson comments, when he says something like, hey, I didn't ask to be this great. Yeah. I am. Yeah. So it's my responsibility to, and there's certain responsibilities of leaders, and there's certain responsibilities of, so many programs have that person, whether it's that guy or that woman, but that person that kind of is on the horse and kind of, carries the flag. And I think that's important, because that's how you get places you've never been before. And so that was always, to me, a signature of your coaching. You did things and got places and won at a level most people weren't. Mm-hmm. And our responsibility is to make sure that our players and families understand the balance of it, because you can't be a Navy SEAL soldier with the light training. I
No.
mean, and it's rough. It's tough in our dugouts.
Yeah.
But that's part of why our teams have got there. So Marty, a lot of these coaches, there's that edge. And part of the message that I think we need to share at Mike is to tell these kids and parents, don't take that personal.
No.
Don't take it personal. Don't put us, I know you're in our hands, but don't give us the power and responsibility to affect your emotions when that could be sometimes just a personality defect on our end of it. I mean, that's really important. Don't take your coaches personal, because as soon as I ask a player, do you think he meant it personally? Do you think he doesn't like you?
Yeah.
Do you think he goes home and he has this disdain, or he just, no. If anything, if you ask him after practice, like, why did you say that? Or I appreciate if you don't yell at me and call me an idiot in front of the team.
Yeah.
Most of the time, all the time, we feel bad afterwards. Go, no. Teaching moment, whatever it was. But I think that's important for people to understand, because I think sometimes they interpret it as we're not approachable or we're not this. Now in the moment, we're doing our stuff. But I think that's important, because don't shy away from that, players. A lot of times in the top college programs, you're going to have a lot of that too, and learn to assimilate.
You learn as you go, obviously, like anything. It's funny, we just got through the Super Bowl and watching Belichick. He has grandkids up on read a book about him when he was at Cleveland. He was a jerk. He I don't know if he still is. I'm sure he is. He has some hard edges now, but these people evolve, and I think it's your responsibility. Yeah, these parents. I always tell the kids, if I don't like you, I won't say anything to you. If the person I'm pounding and screaming at, they're the ones that I have the affection for. They're the ones that I think that there's something there that you want to bring out of them. And it's hard for them to relate to that, because the parents get so overwhelmed with, he benched her. He pulled her out of the game. Well, yeah, because there's something there. Yeah. There's a reason.
And there's times we have to make decisions. Yeah. Look, if you're a firefighter and you can't get the hose hooked up to the truck, it's not time to worry about how you did on the last test, man. No. We got something we got to do right now. I think that's what sports are good for as well, which is why I think our players have that higher level of value to who they work for later on down the road. So how did the Batbuster when you joined the Batbusters, how did that come about?
Interesting story that in that time frame was about very common. Well, I can tell you, after 2001, when we played in Marietta, Gary Henning, which was typical back then. And I look at it now, I was very bitter at that time. I had Dominique Lestraps and Candace Baker and some of these kids that were just great players, and they moved on to the Batbusters, and Gordon's Panthers took a couple players, and it was very typical. The dad coming up with a good team, they would just got picked apart. And I was bitter at the time, and at that time.
So that happened to you too?
Yeah. And so I had my daughter, and nonetheless, I'm coaching this team. I got to take care of my kid. So I coached with the Cruisers for a couple of years to make sure Kristen had a place to play and was in a competitive environment, and learned a lot of things from Mel and Dean and Ron. We had a great staff, and we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
Those Dean guys had a great mind. Has.
And Dean is, they just wear you out. We would practice for 6-7 hours and just go. They're all high-end people. And I learned a lot, but I learned a different viewpoint of things. When I was at Nationals in 2004, 2003, I believe you guys were playing Gary late in the tournament, I think almost at the end, maybe in the finals or something like
Oregon.
that. And we had gotten beat, and I drove to Oregon that year. I'll never forget why I did that. I have no idea, but I drove, and I'm driving home, and my phone rings, and it was Dave Lestraps called me. He goes, "Hey, Gary wants to talk to you when you get back home." Okay. So that was in 2003 at Nationals. We spoke, got together. And the only thing Gary ever told me that I can remember that was definitive was, "Mike, I don't want you yelling at the players." And I thought, okay. But here again, little did I know at that time, he taught me how it's not always what you say, it's what you do. And it's, that oddity, you and I know Gary very well, and how he did things. And there's always things you kind of shake your head or wince at, kind of like, why did he do that? But yet you learn how to Learn how to back out. Look at things differently. You know, when you're looking at the box right in front of you, look at it from the side and see what you can see over there. And that's
his expression was really inward. So, you know, we're outward. We're kind of out there and expressive, but, you know, the way he carries himself is close to dominant.
Yeah.
Like if you watch them in a day, they saunter, they do a certain thing, and they're not up and down all over the place. So you're not gonna watch them coach and tell how they're feeling or whether they're winning. It's pretty much the same thing. So,
and
what was he looking for you to do? Because I give him credit for not having to be the guy. Was he looking already for a transition? Was he? I
really don't think so at the time. I think that
he liked what he saw from you, and
you know, he knew we were actually going to merge our teams in 2000. Then there was some parent conflict, and he decided not to do it. But when we had just won 16 and under, he was there in Midland, Texas, standing in the outfield. We were just going to put the teams together at that time. And there was some things that came up with some of the parents and issues that come up all the time. Chose not to do it. And so we had communicated. We knew each other well. We used to scrimmage him when I was 16s, and he had Kara Gruel, and we used to go and scrimmage him. Wow, because we can compete a little bit, and it was a good practice game instead of going to play one of the other 18 and under teams. But it just evolved. I went and worked. I was just the guy hitting balls and you know, grinding at practice and doing things. And little did I know at that time, this was in the birth of, you know, Surf City tournaments, the PGF. I was deeply involved with our team, helping Gary run the team, and you know, it was Gary's team. I wasn't there to make decisions or say anything. I just kind of I was the warrior, and I was a soldier, and I did it. And
so, what were you in it for when you joined? What were you? You know what? Did you know, or just trying to do the right thing?
The right thing,
right? Like we see a lot of teams right now when they are looking at organizations. Look, I'm not making them. I've got to do the right thing for my team. I got to do the right thing for. I don't even know what that is. I got to do something.
I think that Gary, I was just working. I wanted to work to make the team better, and that's all Gary's motive was. He wanted a coach there to coach the players to be better. Right. We didn't have any imagination that this was going to turn into some great thing. I mean, we worked for free. All these guys now, they all want to run their team, and they want to have a friendly where they make some money on the weekends and stuff like that. I never did that. I grinded. I used to do camps. Gary and I would do camps in Colorado, and we didn't make a dime. We just did it, you know?
And that's back when it wasn't really a sports business. No. There weren't the softball economy wasn't as thriving as it is now. No. You know, that I think that around that time, say 2003, 2004 was that next step of evolution for the sport. So you look at the College World Series, and the next few years after that, the coverage started changing, started magnifying, the ESPN coverage started, and really the ratings, everything started to blow up. That's when they started to expand the stadium. So, you know, to be a part of that, you know, I think back to the generation of players that we coached in the 90s. And so you think about the Watleys, the Newmans, and a lot of those, they were a league of their own for kind of what happened, the evolution of sports. So there's that original league of their own and what happened in the 40s. But I really look at the group of players that they set standards. And we just did a podcast with Amanda and Mel Roth was in here. But they set standards at every level they went to. They went into high school and set standards. Mm-hmm. They went into college, set standards. They went to the Olympic team and set standards. And they really were in a league of their own. And they kind of came up and they changed a certain dynamic. And then watching Lisa Fernandez kind of carry everything on her shoulders. But 2003, 2004, 2005, to be part of that change for us and not knowing what was happening, you're kind of noticing things around. But we didn't think outside the box or think as businessmen.
No, not at all. And what's interesting is that group of kids was very dynamic in how they were right at the beginning when they came through the college system, you know, in 2009, 10, 11, and 12. That's when everything just exploded. And I put a lot of appreciation into, you know, with our group, we had Katie Schroeder and Monica Harrison and Dre Harrison and Brittany Lestraps and Donna Kerr. We had some great kids, Francesca Nea. You look at all these people, how successful they are now away. You know, Brittany Lestraps is on a football staff at Washington State. So these people do things that most people didn't, but they were at the beginning of this thing really explode. And I'll always appreciate Gary for, you know, it's funny. I didn't get paid and I didn't do anything. I did what I thought was right, like you said. But I was grinding. I fed off of the work that those kids were willing to put into it. And I always appreciate from Gary allowing me to do that, because this is what has This was the foundation of what we built.
And I think that's again important part of our story. So I don't do any public appearances where I don't mention Gary Ward. I don't mention when someone says I'm the founder of the Batbusters. I'm the founder of the Firecrackers. I'm like, whoa. I'm the president. But let's that brick still needs to be acknowledged more. And not that they want it and they don't want it, but it's an important part of the story of the brand because the brand has developed to the point it is right now. And I think that's important that we don't forget kind of the inception of that. So let's go back to 2006, 2007. Well, we got an education from Gary in 2003, winners bracket final in Oregon. So now we get to the final game against you guys. And I'm going to assume this about you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And I mean this respectfully. It's not easy to, I'm not easily impressed. And I respect everyone that we coach against. But there's sometimes it's a head nod. Sometimes it's a look. But that's one of the first times I remember. And so before we started recording today, I mentioned to you, like, sometimes it's just that a guy's not a dick. Or to put it professionally, he's has a more professional approach. But it might have been a nod or one of those things. Or after the game, we came close and lost at the end. But afterwards, you gave me one of those nods afterwards. And kind of me was like, hey, he's not a dick. He's not a, and it's hard to find because I believe that so many men become victims of their competitiveness and they don't realize, they don't mean to be that, but they're lost in the moment. And then all of a sudden they don't realize they're puffing their chest out bigger than it is, or they're making the moment bigger than it is. In the end, I feel like I always want to remind them that we're softball coaches.
We are softball
and so that,
coaches.
Belichick and Brady are one thing, but to go back and the ASA or whatever, the championship we won, it's really what we're doing in life service. It doesn't mean we're not competitive. We're extremely competitive. But that was an important time for me, because I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I wouldn't have wanted a backdoor. I would have wanted to not go to have to face the best because you got a lot of education there. And that was an important piece for me. And when I think about those teams and how we really were the team that had to prove itself at the time, because that team that you guys had was freaking amazing. But we went through that same thing when we played the Athletics twice and when we lost those games. But I felt like competitively, that group of players from the Athletics had to do what they did to earn that respect. I didn't give that group of players the respect I did, even to like this day when I follow what the players on those athletics team have done all the way to now and the Aubrey Murnos and what they've done. I didn't give them that credit back then. And so that needs to be, it's part of that story as well, because we needed to grow through that to get to a certain point. I look at kind of how it was a few years later when we played the Athletics, and even going through the line at the end of the game, it's almost like you wanted to tell yourself, got beat but we're the better team. But actually I respect the hell out of what they did. So it was an important part of the growth. And I think that's where our tracks didn't go off, and now we had this animosity like you see a lot of times on the competitive field. Now the Batbusters and Firecrackers, we had earned enough respect to become a little bit of a rival, but there was nothing like the Panthers and the Batbusters. There was nothing like the old days, and we've done some podcasts and stuff like that. Listening to you earlier talking about Gary calling you and pulling you up, and you guys collaborating a little bit. I never got that call from the Panthers. Gosh, that would have been never called me to see.
Different approach. I think, Tony, all this stuff, it all comes down to people, treating people with respect, and whether you're a trash man or a bricklayer or a banker, you need to work hard. You need to treat people well and treat people as you want to be treated, and
the golden rule,
and just go through it. Like you said, we coach softball, for God's sake. I mean, and we have a good time doing it. There's a lot of influence we have on girls' lives about how we handle ourselves. I think it's always important to carry yourself a certain way and to do things. And I hope that rubs off. I hope that somewhere down the line that affected how these kids are developed.
So someone goes, but okay, here we got a clip of you, Mike, or you and Tony, and look, it's not just softball in that moment. And then I would say, but look inside me. If you could feel in that moment when I'm bleeding to this, it's not about she needs to have a batting average or that we need to win that. No. It's like she needs to understand this. I'm preparing her, and this is how we impart things, how we get it across. So I've got a sledgehammer on this one, and this one over here, you just do that. And she remembers. They're all different, you know, but that's kind of the trick of coaching. I think the responsibilities that are in front of us right now are enormous. and they're gigantic, and I love it because there's still a lot of work to be done. And you just said it. It's putting our noses to the grind in a different way now. For me, maybe not for you. It's not as many ground balls, but it's a different type of grind. You're still doing a lot of that physical work. I feel this commitment to the industry. I feel the commitment to kind of the organizational things that we're doing. So now take me to. When did you expand and get into the building? When did the building come into place? Because we're kind of in parallels with that, with the expansion of teaching and things like that. So
if people would know what went into that, we opened Sports Training Complex. We were supposed to open in August of 2007. The city of Anaheim was very difficult to work with. Trying to get the engineering approved. We got everything approved. And then when we get to final, they wouldn't sign off on it. We ended up sitting there for 3 or 4 months, without any income, trying to redesign the netting and do some of the things.
And this is really something that you had wanted to do. This is something you felt a need. Like, what was the vision on that originally?
Well, I can tell you how this came about. I was working with Steve McNee and Gary and Ernie Parker and everybody down at USA. I had done some lessons a couple days a week, and my daughter was a freshman at Nevada. She had real bad tendonitis, and a longtime friend of mine, Joan Bozel, she ran a sports medicine institute. And I took Katie down there to have Joan look at her arm. And this was in, around the holidays, just after the holidays. And she's laying down there and Joan's working on her arm. Well, I looked next to her and Carson Palmer's laying on the table. And he had just had his knee blown out playing against Pittsburgh in the playoffs. Everybody remembers that, how awful that was. But I looked and I thought, wow, I mean, this is a legitimate operation here. I mean, one time I came back and I believe it was Johnny Damon was in there hitting in the cage. I thought, oh, this is like,
they're not bad at what they do. There's a reason why they're here. Right.
Joan had quite a client base. She was very exceptional at what she did. And they had a little tiny batting cage in the back. And so I thought, and her daughters were coming up. They were like in 10 and under at the time or something like that. And they were coming up. I said, you know what? We had to look into opening a place. Well, we started looking around, and lo and behold, a few months later, we leased a building over by Anaheim Stadium. It became, we made a lot of bad moves and how we built it. But here again, it was the foundation of what played out. And it had, we had to go
led
through
to the
it.
next step, right?
It was awful. It was an awful building. The roof leaked. I used to stay up. Oh my God, I'd stay there when it was raining, rough water pouring in the building and stuff like that. But it was all part of the adventure to get to this point.
Now, did you go in with, it's a pretty good sized building.
Yeah, it was just too big. It was too big. At the time, it was too big, but we thought that everybody's going to come in. No.
Softball marketing. Right.
Yeah, they think, well, and I hear
you got the water. There's the horses.
Yeah, everybody's so many people. We're going to open a batting cage. And we're going to have training, and we're going to have a school, and the kids can do their homework.
We're going to build it, and they will come.
Yeah. Nope.
They're not going to leave their instructors. Aren't going to. Right?
No, they're not. They're not. And so what you have to do is define something different. And that was a growing time. I was with Gary. That was 2007, 2008, 2009. We had some incredible events going on there. The team was doing good. We were going back and forth to Oklahoma City. The Bree Matthews death set us back. I think that set Gary back. I think that was just a real odd time in our development. And then the economy was horrible. It was a struggle. It was just a real tough time. I would work 7 days a week. I worked every day as long as I could. And then Brittany Schutte went to Florida, stinking hits me with a line drive. When I have two cages open, I'm trying to pitch. It hits me with a line drive in the ribs, and so I have a cracked rib, and I'm sitting there trying to pitch. And the look on her face was like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry." But this is just another wrinkle in the thing that played out. But we eventually got our wits about us. The lease was up, and we just stepped into a great situation where we're at now. The economy was at its bottom. An opportunity to lease another building on the other side of the stadium came up where we currently are at, and in April 2010. So
now you're smarter in designing it.
Much smarter. We were able to get, they gave you rent compensation. They wanted to move you, and it saved us. And
tell me about your layout. So you have where your cages are, and then you have open space. So
yes.
So you wanted, and then you have a training
area. That grew. We had when we started the business, EM was there. Richard MacArthur and I. Richard MacArthur
you mentioned that, right?
Just helped me build everything. This guy is he's a friend for life, and he
been around a long time.
Yeah, and he helped us put all this stuff together, all the welding and all the things that we did. It was crazy, and it's changed dramatically from the first layout to almost every 6 to 8 months it adjusted again. Until 3 years ago, we added another 10,000 square feet to it, and when we did that, we took over the training aspect of it, and what is happening, Tony, is it's evolving, and it's now we have some trainers with Dynamic Athletics now with us that are changing the industry. What these guys are doing with the young ladies is it's just completely next level. We have college coaches watching what we do, the development and the flexibility and pliability of what Stratton and Ethan are working with these kids on is just.
So who are the primary trainers? Who is the core of Dynamic, and what do you really like about what they're doing?
Ethan Weisrock is the guy that put the group together. Stratton Kim is he's the bond of this thing. He is graduated from Cal State Fullerton. In fact, he just got his master's a year ago. He is taking overhead sports and the flexibility and the strength and speed and agility of these young ladies and women to a different level. What he studies, and he's becoming a student of his craft. It's one thing, I hear all the time, well, I go to a trainer here and I go to a trainer here, and I'm thinking, I have to bite my tongue.
It's like batting coaches.
Yeah. I go to my batting coach here and thinking, okay, it's not like this guy.
You have a relationship, but what's the takeaway? What's it? Right.
It's complete buy-in, and what I watch is happening. I got a young girl that's going to Oregon. She's a junior on my team. She just deadlifted 300 pounds. I mean, and she's a second baseman. It's what these guys are doing with these girls and their flexibility and their mobility and watching their footwork and some of the things they're doing. You would appreciate it because you see that. Some people don't look at the reality of what a person, their movements.
So what you're seeing that separates it from another training type business is how they're creating specific training exercises that are specific to softball. They're more creative.
Flexibility, rotation, acceleration, focusing acceleration on different parts of the body based on the flaws of their swing, taking video. Technology is a big thing. We have the Blast people and the Diamond Kinetics people. All these people are bringing in, integrating different technology into our game. But if there's not the ability to advance the acceptance or the knowledge that's brought up from that technology, then it's just technology. It's a waste of time.
Right. It's glamorous, and people love to spend time with it, but in the end, it sits in the same place. And what you have is why it doesn't work, or what it's supposed to be doing, but it's still sitting in the same place.
Is the word sit.
I couldn't exist if what we did just sat. Like I couldn't. No, I'd be gone. Yep. Right.
And what they do is they take the videos and they start looking at this and breaking it down, and they can take what these girls are doing, and they can apply different drills and different thought processes to develop a leaner, stronger athlete.
Now, they've been working with you for how
long? For a little over a year now. We started them last year.
So you've really seen this kind of. So it's something that's new. So how would teams find and get access to?
Dynamic Athletics, we have a website. And it's Dynamic Athletics. But our website, you can reach on there. You can reach Ethan through there. You can sign up. It's in our sport, you and I both know, Tony, we deal with thousands of families, and it's a burden. Most of the families that we deal with have the younger brother is playing soccer, the older sister is playing.
Three kids
swimming,
and two parents.
Volleyball. It's crazy. And I did it. I had four kids, and they're all doing different sports. The financial burden on everybody is extreme, and we have to be very cognizant of that. But what we have done is we've streamlined it to make it so reasonable to get them in there. So
you're not charging what it's worth. You charge what you feel people can afford to get it in service. So in the end, again, when I suggest people try something once and then you make a decision. Just try it once. So you're not being pulled in for a 6 lesson package. Nothing. Just to taste it. And then if it's, like I tell people, if it's horrible, scream to everybody, it's horrible. But once you taste this, give it a try. So so teams can go to the website, and you want this.
Yes.
You want other organizations. You want teams to understand that listen, Batbusters train there, but it's and this is part of this, so that the story can get out. Like give them a call, and then when they walk in, they'll be surprised that look, it's a place to train. That we're about the industry. We take care of our organizations. We're not here to pull you into the Batbusters and pull you into the Firecrackers. Come on in, train your teams, experience this, because the bottom line is your kids are going to be better.
I'm proud of the fact that, number one, when you walk into a sports training complex, I never wear Batbuster gear.
Yeah.
Because I don't want that to define me. Sports training complex is a separate business. It is the home of our store and all the stuff that we do. But when you walk outside, the only sign that you'll see of the Batbusters is there's PGF banners from winning championships, and there's a huge Sierra Romero mural that was put up by Dean Marini Wilson that has a Batbuster logo on it as well.
Super important for the players to see that.
It's a home for softball athletes that want to reach a different level.
Yeah.
So
no neon signs pulling everybody in?
No.
You remember the signage you saw on this building?
Yeah.
It's for basketball.
Yeah, for basketball. Yeah.
The Firecracker sign is to where the apparel is next door. Well, because but people come here and go, oh, I didn't know. And I said, look, so we're not trying to pull you in. Like you got to find us.
Yeah, you're comfortable who you are. Yeah. I don't have to worry about that stuff. And people will think, well, that's Mike's place, and they're going to recruit players, and that's just so 1995. I'm over that. I don't worry about that stuff, and I can't stop. If there's a 12 and under Batbuster team in there, and they see a good player on a 12 and under SoCal Athletics team, they may. I can't watch. But with me.
What coaches need to understand is that when you don't violate them, when you respect their space, they're more likely to give you a call later on down the road because they love the way. It's like we're telling our coaches, look, you're being an a-hole in front of that pitcher's family over there because they're beating you 6-0, and you don't understand that family might have integrity, and that family may call you because of how you handled the loss because their winning coach doesn't know how to handle a loss. So that's a much bigger picture. I think that's a big point that even with the Firecracker relationship, that everything takes nurturing, massaging, time, that nothing happens overnight. But I love the fact that you're opening the doors, and we've had a couple of championship games where I had 5 students in the lineup of the other teams. I've never called a pitch against a student of mine. Never to me jeopardize that principle, because that just doesn't make sense.
I'll tell you a story. In 2008 or 9, something like that. My daughters were playing for Nevada. Their first round game in regionals was against UCLA. The leadoff batter was Katie Schroeder, then Monica, then Dre.
Yeah, your team, right?
My team,
right.
Gianna DeSalvatore. Right, they're all our bat. I've thrown 10,000 balls.
What do you not know about them? Right.
So Katie calls me up and she says, "Dad, how do I pitch to him?" You guys figure that out. Figure it out. Figure it out. That's So I never have gotten involved with, we've always had exceptional people that really focus on that. I don't get into that, Tony. Yeah. Our being is more important than what happens.
Well, and I think that's a good point that, again, I want coaches to hear this, because when you don't realize that you've compromised things for what? For a player to be on your team, and then those players are gone, and now you don't have this relationship with this other coach that's been around 20 years. You don't need to do that. Janelle Linville and Jessica Schultz, they were the 2 that I remember the most of. If I was calling pitches in a game and I just did this little, that means like, look, you got this one. I'm not giving you nothing. Yeah. So, but just put my hat on. What do you see? What do you, I mean, it's basically observations and decisions anyways, but no, I'm not giving you anything. And Janelle would make these remarks to me, and I hate it and I love it the way you are. I hate it because we'd want something, but I really respect the fact that you're not, because you wouldn't do that to me.
And they'll remember that.
Yeah, that you're not on another team.
That's what they'll remember out of the whole thing.
I think that's important. So, boy, a lot of time in that building. If people only knew the time that you spend in there and kind of what it takes to make that thing go. Yeah. And so now we roll up to the Pride opportunity. Yeah. So, and you and I had, we've had, I think there's a lot of great conversations, but in hearing you, it's kind of like listening to you talk about this training. There's an excitement when you talk about it. So to me, it's like, listen, people, there's something there. Check it out. And now the Pride opportunity was something that you had an opportunity to do. Mm-hmm. I feel like you needed to do it for different reasons, but tell me about that job, what it was for you, what you.
Well, I can go back to the very first time I met the staff at USSSA. Jamie Loprise, Andrea Duran, Amber Freeman came to my facility. All, mind you, players that I have coached. Jamie I had not. Obviously, she's from Texas. But all players that I have been able to coach a year or two down the road. And they came in and they were Pride players at the time, and they spoke to me about the fact that the USSSA was doing the World Fast Pitch Champ. They're going to do Elite Select. They're going to upgrade they want to put a championship level of fast pitch. And what impressed me immediately was, well, here are former players coming and talking to me about this. I was just in awe that here's a giant, they're the largest operation in the world when it comes to baseball, crazy, softball. Right. It is. But what they did is they were integrating former players back into the game. And so that was the first thing that caught my eye. And then all of the things that all the communications that I've had up to even today are with former players, whether it's Gladding, whether it's from Andrea Duran. Now I have Courtney CEO. I deal with people that are former players. And when you deal with other organizations, that's not the case. Right. And it always impressed me how they were reaching back into our sport. And you made a comment to me a couple of years ago. I want these women to work from 9 to 5, not 5 to 9. Right. And I always remember that. Right. And I think I took a lot of credence in that, okay, I'm dealing with these former players. So when they came in, we accepted. We went to Kansas City a couple of times, and they were great tournaments, and we did well. And at that time, I got to meet Dawn DiDonatis. And Dawn, it's funny, the perception of what people are compared to what they actually are. Right. This is one of the most friendly, family-oriented men I have ever met in my life. He's a grandpa. He is truly a grandpa. And we started talking one day. We were out at Cathedral City. This was probably 3 years ago. We sat out in the outfield. We didn't go to a hotel conference room. We didn't do anything. We sat in the outfield and we're, eating a hot dog or something, watching games going on. And we just talked about softball. And I was talking to Don, like we're watching games with Arizona and somebody playing. And I'm going, well, he goes, that girl played for you? Yeah, the Florida's playing. That girl played?
Yeah, that was kind of.
You need to pick that girl right there. She's going to be good.
And it's interesting because you're a guy like this as well. You don't have on the website the whole list of everything. So when people start to unfold the story, like what that and that, and you go, like it's been there. You listen, do your due diligence, like it's there, and then they're like, wow. So
it was fun, and here I found just a guy that loved his softball team, the Pride, and loved what he had built, and he was passionate about building this up. Well, a year later, we're in the same situation. But the Pride is going to play. This was a year ago now. The Pride's going to play at Cathedral City, and Lonnie Alameda at that time was coaching the team. And obviously, Florida State's involved with another tournament. They're not going to be there. They can't play. So he asked me, he said, would you coach the Pride at Cathedral City? Right. And I thought, well, sure. I remember the first person. There was two people I called. I called Tim Walton and I called Caitlin Lowe. And Caitlin just thought it was the best thing. He goes, man, this is going to be the best thing ever. You're going to enjoy it. And Tim said, everything I've done with the USSSA Pride has been above board. And so I thought, let's give it a shot. And I'll never forget, here we have our first day of practice is the day before the thing started a year ago. And we have just a light workout. And, here I got Kaylani Ricketts, and Lauren Chamberlain was hurt at the time. She was there, but she had surgery. She was unable to play. But all these great players are here, Kelly Kretschmann and Sierra. And, of course, I knew Sierra and Chip. We had not drafted Chip. We got Chip through trade or something like that. But Sierra was there, all these players. I knew Andrea Duran. And we just started working out. And what's interesting, all of our trades, there's a common knowledge. It's common language. Right. Right. You can go walking in any situation. If you got people that want to work out, then we can go do anything with anybody. Right. And they accepted the workout. They did well. We played Japan, and they just killed us our first game. It was a tough game. In the MPF, the strike zone.
That was your first game.
First game.
Japan
beats us
Mary
6,
Nutter,
I think,
right,
6-0 or something like that. And little did I know, the MPF strike zone is the width of the batter's box, and in college softball, it's the width of home plate. And I found out why. If they called that strike zone in the MPF, somebody would die. The hitters are so good. Right. But we got squeezed a little bit. I thought it was kind of a tough, but Jolene Henderson pitched that game. One of the nicest people on the planet Earth. I can tell you by that.
Free spirit.
She is just a wonderful person. Uh-huh. But anyways, we run this team. So I actually took something out of the game, and I kind of sat back, and after the game, I called everybody over, and I'm thinking, let's see this travel ball guys coaching these pros. Here we go. Mike's going to get on a soapbox.
The post game.
And I just said, hey, let's start thinking about this in reality, what's going on? So we adjusted. We made some adjustments defensively, and we made some adjustments at the plate. I jumbled the order around. I got to work with Kirstie Merritt, who is another great person on this planet. Great kid. We just adjusted some things, and lo and behold, I'll never forget. I told Kirstie, I go, hey, I'm going to have you bat leadoff. And she goes, it never worked for me. And I said, I just think you're going to bat leadoff. So I bat her leadoff. She has like a 7-pitch at bat and walks. Well, boom. Chelsea Goodacre gets a double. We score a couple runs in the first inning, and we end up winning the second game. I think it was like 7-4 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then we played them for a third time on Sunday. And one of the best games, it was very exciting. Tony, you could appreciate this. This was a world-class game. It was really some good players going after each other. Their center fielder's crazy good. Their third baseman, they're Japan. They're a great team. And I think we beat them like 4-2. It was just a great game. It was a great softball game. And I thought, you know what? This is just softball. Right. It's a little better. Right. It's faster. The outfielders cover more ground. The pitchers can do more things, but it's a softball game. Right. And with things went well with the pride, with the players. I'll never forget Megan Wiggins first looking at me, giving me kind of like the stink eye, like, who's this guy? She was kind of cold. Now I communicate
Respect
with her.
Go, look, I wouldn't want you to just give it to me. I got to earn it.
Exactly.
Right? Sure.
And we did. And it was it worked out pretty well. Yeah. Well, when we were at the NFCA a little while longer, Don actually asked me, he says, I want you to coach the Pride next year. And it took there was a lot of moving parts in it based on, I'm coaching the Batbusters.
Can't just say yes and
go. I'm not walking
right.
away from the Batbusters. Right. And so what we did is I communicated with Tim and we just figured something out to cover me. I had Cody Dent, who is just a phenomenal soul. He's just a good guy, and he helped us coach, and he was on the Florida staff, and Andrea Duran, and they covered for the time I was with the Batbusters, but I flew back and forth.
Right.
And the main thing I took out of last season was, here is a travel ball coach coaching this wonderful team of talented professional athletes. The experience of winning the MPF championship and watching some of these people do their thing, Kaylani Ricketts and Shelby Penley, these great players. But my head was spinning. I remember we won Colorado on 4th of July. We win at Colorado. I get on a plane and I fly to Florida. And in Florida, we're playing China. And we had a walk-off win. And it was the 4th of July. There was like 10,000 people there. It was just really an incredible thing. And I'm sitting there, and I actually started, I don't get emotional about this stuff, but I was sitting there, my head's spinning. We just win Colorado, great weekend. I fly here. We have a walk-off win. There's 8,000, 9,000 people screaming and yelling. I'm sitting there, man, what's going on here? This is crazy.
The experience.
It's just
right.
If
who would have thought even 15 years ago?
The 8-under coach that got
right.
But I just wish that at some point, everybody that at our level that's coaching, all these guys and dads and people that are coaching softball, would get a chance to experience what I did in some way, shape, or form. I had not been to an MPF game until I went to the championship series back in Alabama, because Jamie had the Select 30 going on. I went back there, and that was going on at the University of Alabama. The next year I went when it was at LSU. Great games, watching some former players, watching things. But that was the only time I had been at games. And here I'm coaching the Pride. And it was the the thought of Don, what he had put together and his just trust in me to do this and how they maneuvered everything around to make it happen. I just wish more people at our level would get a chance to experience that. I wish that the MPF was more available to be seen by our level, because it is such good softball, and it is such good softball played by such great women. It is really a blast to deal with them. They are truly professionals. You know, you coached Lauren and DeWitt and some of these kids that I got to, I call them kids, and excuse me, ladies, for calling them kids, but you guys still are kids actually to me. But when you get on the practice field and you see willing, strong-willed people that want to work and want more information, they want to learn more, they want to hear more, it's not intimidating at all. Where people think, well, what did you tell Sierra Romero? What did you tell Lauren? I coached them. I saw areas, we talked. They give you feedback. The one thing our kids don't give is feedback. You know, they're so scared.
Well, they have more ownership of their game at that.
They own everything.
They're independently training.
They know their body movements. They know what they're capable of doing at all times. It is. And I just wish that more people would get involved. I wish there was more opportunity for the MPF to be seen on the West Coast. And it just for more people to see.
I like the fact though that when you put it the way you did, so I'm a big UFC fan, and I love after a great fight when the fighter wins a championship, something, and they're doing it for others, or they express something to the crowd, and all of a sudden you just feel this instant connection. And so when you know in that fighter's heart, or in this coach's heart, and it's kind of funny even to use that word because people wouldn't think, which is why we're doing this, is that you're actually carrying the flag for a lot of coaches. For the coaches watching this to know that in your mind, when you're coaching Pride, you're thinking of all the coaches that don't get an opportunity to do what you're doing. So for me, there's a little bit of piece of me in what you're doing. Some of our unique coaching experiences and realizing that, and the pinch, the poke, and here we are. I got to experience losing to the Japan team 9-0 at the Junior Worlds, and then coming back and watching the arrival of Lauren Hager and in the championship game, and that experience. But you're not doing it for yourself. No. The flag means something completely different to me now in softball. It's always meant something different being a son of a soldier, but behind you was the flag that was sitting in the dugout. And the reason that meant something to me is not because it was the American flag. At the beginning of the Junior World Tournament, the crowd didn't accept us. Yeah. The tsunami had just happened in Japan. Yeah. America's already looked at the way we're looked at. And I believe that we had to earn their respect. And that started with how we behaved in the hotel, how we acted towards other teams. And we got a round of applause after winning that I felt was an acknowledgement, is like, no, we don't love you. Yeah. But we can't hate you.
But they tipped
and we
their
like
hat.
you.
Yeah.
And that flag meant that to me because it was part of that whole experience. So I think that's important for other coaches because, we do understand it. And to know that, that we're in a new day and an age. And there's a lot of exciting coaches. There's a lot of exciting instructors, some teams coming up doing things. And we're in a new day and age. But experience, I'm ready to lend my experience. And I think we are. And we're going to talk about BBFC here in a second. Is to, we're still trying to be very relevant, and it's not anything of the past, but that experience, I'd want to be in a plane with a pilot that's flown through a lot of storms and is comfortable with half the plane falling apart, and he doesn't freak out, and he's going to land the plane. And so offering that, Mike, I think is very, very important because I think it gives a different perspective from coaches that feel like when they see the intensity or they see the machine of the team winning, and then they think, they think there's this space between them and the top. And really it's like the last trophy we won, I really felt it. I said, if I tell you this is a people's championship, it's because I'm thinking of all of you that you're good people, but nobody will listen to you because you don't win. Yeah. So you're not an influencer. Yeah. But I listen to you. Yeah. And all of those people that are just like us, but they don't win because they don't have this or that. And they're just people. So I think that's an important part of it. And I know that the Pride experience is very fulfilling for you and, very healthy for you.
There was something that happened that was very unique at the end when we were playing the Bandits, and I won't get into details of the series. It went great. The kids, they played great. And you would relate to this a little bit. So Hallie Wilson's on my team, and Hallie has been a member of the Pride for several years. And little did I know at the time, I wasn't aware of this at the time, but she was going to retire, and I had no idea of this. because they're very humble people. They're not going to like burden you with something that they got going on. So what I had done in several instances is I would have Lauren was playing and I would bring Hallie in because she did such a good job at first base.
Right.
I put her glove out there on defense because, let's close this out. Right. And we're in a situation where Hallie comes up and I put her in a game. We were winning a game 3-0. It was clear that we were in good shape. They had threatened us a few times, but it's about the 6th inning, and Hallie's spot comes back up in the order, and we had a runner on third base, and there was 2 outs. And Cody being just on top of everything. This guy's a note taker. He had everything down. So Hallie's spot comes up. She comes walking up on deck, and I saw Cody come up to the top step, and he was looking at me with his pen. He was going to we're going to put Lauren back in the game here. We're going to enter Lauren back in the game. And I don't know. There's no way to tell you why.
Intuition.
And I'm thinking, well, the one thing I did say, well, Lauren, if we don't need a sac fly here, and if she hits a home run, great, which, she could do. But I thought, it's 3-0. Let's just let Hallie stay in the game. And I didn't know at the time that her family, everybody knew that her career was done. I didn't know that. She comes up and hits a base hit in the left field and knocks in the 4th run. And she's standing at second base after sliding in. And you could just see the emotion just killing her. And I thought, what the heck happened? Wow. And little did I know, she came up and that was her last at bat as a softball player. Right. And I'll never forget that. Right. And, it's kind of cool. Jim coaches with me now, and we share these things that are very similar in our experiences, that it was something that I'll never forget.
Right.
Just
the culmination of a long, great career. I remember the first time I saw her at 12, and one of the few players that from the very first, it's like that first impression, right? Yeah. And how many players really give you something on that first impression, even at 12. And to this day, there's probably 2 or 3 other players, but highest softball IQ that we've ever had.
And this is that thing. These guys, everybody gets so involved in our sport, and they look at the pro game. The pro game is very similar to what we deal with. It's better, it's faster, it's stronger, all those intangibles. But nonetheless, there's still an emotional tie between players and coaches, and we know each other, and there has to be that bond. And I go back to what we said earlier. It all comes down to how you treat people. Right. Be somebody that's up front. Good players want to be coached, and they want to be coached hard, and they want structure. And that's the big thing Tim told me, man, Mike, they want structure. Don't be scared to set something up, and because they're going to grind in it. And they did. And I thank Don again for allowing me to put the structure in play, and those players responded to it. Right.
So really cool. Now you're balancing everything out, and you're going to have another busy summer?
Yep. We're going to do it again.
Right. Yeah. But a year into it, so yeah.
Well, now I know everybody. I've actually gotten text messages, I've to Delaney Gurley and some of the players, and it's just a unique difference now because I know them all. Right.
And Jamie Lowprice is she's stand up.
Yep. Yeah, she's on it. She's and we're doing a bunch of things with training aspect, and this will be coming out in the future. We're going to work on some training platforms with USSSA. And we're excited for our sport for that.
Yeah. So. Well, there's a lot of great things coming. So you and I started having conversations. It was a few years ago, and we started meeting for lunch. Yeah. And it's kind of the parallels of the positions that we're in. And I think I remember you telling me, look, it's not a lot of people we can relate to, and the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. So we started meeting occasionally and started talking about some things, and I'll call it synergy or whatever. Yeah. And there was things just kind of fell in place. So we started thinking about responsibilities. Yeah. And it's because it's not that, people want to know, well, Batbuster, Firecracker, what's your agenda? What are you gonna, and we can kind of we can mind screw a lot of people, but this is a good opportunity for me to kind of enlighten people about what it is that we're doing. There's no specific project in front of us. Nope. There's no agenda for personal glory. There is an agenda, but that agenda is to help organizations and to help the sport. Yeah. But there's none of this stuff that so many people are dealing with where they can't trust a motive or this or that. And so BBFC is not just going to be limited to our organizations, but I want people to know there's nothing in front of us that we have. We are just two people that we know that if we kind of align things, we can make things better.
Yes.
And so it was a fun first year.
Well, and it culminated when we were in Florida, and just so everybody knows, that event is going down again this year. We plan on expanding it and making it more enjoyable. But I really hope that the teams that didn't go reach out to these other teams that went and find out how things went. It was. I
mean, that's how it's going to work.
Was a great time.
When somebody goes to Disneyland and it's a great time, they tell people. And I mean, that's really the key to the event. It's not creating a condition where people feel obligated or anything. If somebody attended something and they had a great time, they're going to tell people, a restaurant, a movie, or anything like that. And so just the fact that we thought out of the box and we created some different things for people to experience. And I think anything, because it's like teams, organizations, nothing happens overnight. Instant gratification doesn't take place. So if I say, look, we executed about 70% of what we'd really like to, I think that's a great first try, because there's always going to be things that we need to do better. But for it to feel good enough to make that commitment for you to go back to Florida, which is something you're doing a lot already, and for it to be worth our time, I'm super excited about it.
The home run,
like I say, the home run, to walking in that whole thing, and just the learning curve. But like I say, starting with working with Jamie and really like a lot of our partnerships and relationships we have, it's because of the type of people we're working with.
Exactly.
And the result is a result of the process. We look at the process of what we're doing, but there's no agenda. We've got some ideas. I love when we did our SoCal event, and you came up to me, I think it was on Sunday, and you reminded me of how much money we were saving our teams. And it was a pretty astronomical number. And most of our teams will not realize how much we save them, and they don't need to. But that's something that's important to us is we're trying to offset costs. So if you see, I mean, everything's the cost of doing business, there's margins, and I mean, not just business and capitalism, that's what happens. But when you really see that Mike and Tony are out to kind of corner something and, hey, out us on that, but really take a look at what it is that we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And some people need to see other people try it first. So keep an eye on those people that are trying stuff. And then some people like to try something first and say, was it good or it wasn't good? But if you're those people, come and check out our events, because we've the pulse on the industry, I think, is important, and we have an ability to create balance. And I think that's a big part of what we want to do. Well,
that event in October was obviously the Allisters were involved. We had on-deck measurements there. We had a camp setting. We had game setting. We're going to expand on it this year. We're going to try and figure out a way to make that a little bit more of a separate event, because it was so important for the exposure for all the kids. We had
for Batbusters and Firecrackers, the mega event was important to initially.
Yes, but the focus on all of our players, not just our top 1%.
They need a special type of attention, because they are that product. And there needs to be time when they understand they have that, but it really is collectively. There's no everything's inclusive. With the organization,
and that's what was cool. You had everybody involved, so we plan on expanding upon that and making a little bit more focus. And I'm anxious to get the schools involved when we'll get the eyes on the kids. Plus, it's just the ability for everybody to realize when we play these games, we're just softball coaches, and we just want to enjoy it, because you don't get to do this forever. Some of the coaches are going to be done when their kids are done. They move on. They may do this for 3 or 4 or 5, 10 years, and they move on. These are events that you grow from, and it's not meant to be, there's no battle lines drawn. It's something that people need to experience, and I think it's good for our sport.
Well, we purposely do our December event, in a non-recruiting time. So that, because the reality is, if there's one coach in the stands, that will change the mindset and behavior of people that haven't been educated on how to experience this. So then now all that anxiety goes to the kids.
Only about the kids.
And this really, we called it the experience in Florida, and it really was. It was the number one takeaway in mental imagery was walking into the stadium and watching Megan Wiggins on her 35th home run in the batting practice. I mean, balls
I think they wore themselves out.
If you had one of those the tracker deals and just saw the lines of all the batting practice. So quickly kind of paint the picture. We did a SoCal event where we had camp, doubleheader, some game involvement, and it was a big event. Then we did Florida, where we had Batbuster Firecracker teams, and then we ran games plus a skills contest. So we did bases, we did a home run contest, we did throwing distance. Yeah. We had the little dizzy bat deal with the coaches kind of running around, and it was just different. Only thing we didn't prepare for was that SEC championship game that night. We had 13
a lot
Georgia
of
games,
teams,
and
yes.
They were there watching that. But that's all part of the learning curve. But that was a lot of fun. One of the things I noticed walking through, and this is when I visited the complex earlier in the year, is seems like Don or somebody's a pretty big sports fan. There's a lot of memorabilia in the office. Some pretty cool stuff in there.
Well, Don's a Yankee fan. It's a fan to say the least. He has some incredible collectibles there. Yeah. He's also a Michigan guy, so he's a Tom Brady fan. He's got some incredible. He's just here again. He's a grandpa, and all these little trinkets around. It just tells you who he is. He just so loves the sport and the competition.
And you can see he's still in touch with the child.
Oh yeah.
And that's I think a challenge for all of us to be able to, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Donnie now is running things, and Donnie's little son D. I'm trying to make him a Dodger fan and a Patriots fan, but they're down there. But it's just when you go down there, you're all in. It just there's no. Right. Don's wife made me feel at home. I don't have a key to their house, but I'm sure if I knocked on the door, I'd be let in.
I'm one quick to jump. Well, no, I would never jump out of a plane, but I'm pretty quick to exit. If something doesn't feel right, I'm out. Why are we doing this? Blah, blah, blah. Give me a reason to not be here. I don't want to go. And a lot of people know this about me. I loved everything about our trip. I thought it was great, and I can't wait to get back at it this year. Yep. Last topic we want to talk about is to finish the BBFC, more exciting things coming up. We're going to get creative. We have our 12 and unders kind of in our target, so to kind of work on some development things. We've got recruiting needs to meet, different things like that. So keep your eye on bbfc.com. Check it every now and then, once every couple of weeks, and you're going to surprise you with something coming along, but we're constantly working on that stuff. The health and wellness committee that we're part of, and more so, winning championships, star players, All-Americans, and there's a responsibility to the emotional wellness of our players. So Batbusters and Firecrackers have now experienced 2 mutual common early deaths of players that have been in both organizations. So hits home a little bit more to us than most people, but just in general, the concern, and I hate to tell people, sometimes we have to scare you, the reality of something like this happening where a young person takes their life. But it's not that we exactly know exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Being on this committee with Sue, and she is, everyone knows she's amazing with her energy and everything else, but we've got some responsibilities. So what have the Batbusters done? Where are you guys at with this? We're still kind of figuring some things out, but we're definitely rolling the ball a little bit.
We are as well. And this is a touchy subject. So it's not like saying we're going to go do a recruiting camp and just everybody's all in and let's go do it. Well, we're talking about mental health and the stigma that surrounds this, and trying to get people to understand. And as you know, I've learned a lot from Sue, but also Casey Cooper, Dr. Cooper's on this the committee the ad hoc committee that we're working together on, and so much information comes across that even though I don't respond to everything that comes through the group,
we're watching.
I watch everything.
Right. Sure, we know what's going on.
And I try to pick the things that I think are relevant to our organization as a whole and what needs to be filtered to them in the fashion that it does. And so far, so good. I think that we're to the point now where we have eliminated the dirty word. We have eliminated the fact that it's a stigma that is ugly. We are understanding that it's a part of our society. And I think that we're starting to crack the fact that this is a topic that needs to be discussed. And I think that this is going to take a long time. It's not something you want to push on people, but it's a subject that needs to be approached as we go through this. We have a responsibility to make sure people know it's aware and it's out there. And I think as the leaders of our organizations, that we have a responsibility to make sure our coaches understand this. It may lead to something far larger, and it may lead to somebody potentially saving somebody's life. I don't want to blow things in proportion, but reality, it could. So I think we have a responsibility to make sure the coaches are aware of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the resources that we're in contact with.
I mentioned experience earlier. What is that voice of experience? A veteran ball player to the first year guy in the big leagues or in the NFL, the veteran soldier to the rookie soldier. So the veteran coach to those young dads, the veteran coach to those young coaches, that this all goes back to let's say you have that intense dynamic component and you're a yeller and you're this or that, but you have a responsibility to make sure those kids understand, where you're coming from. So that relationship is our responsibility. I think it's really important because we don't want this to no longer be an after the fact type of things. So much of this is preventative. I actually just had my first, coach mentioned to me that a player on his team used the text number and that the kid is getting help right now. And the parents didn't have any idea that she was having problems. And so and if it's only one and that's it, and we did one, they use the text number. So there's a text number on our website. It's 741-741. And we ask our players to put that in their phones because you never know in your loneliest time. And that's the thing, is that when they don't have an outlet, the number one takeaway that where I'm at right now in understanding depression and suicide is that escape clause of death isn't what they want. It's how they get out of, they can't do this anymore. Yeah. But to realize that there are coping strategies and mechanisms that you can cope with what you have, and that you can live a healthy life and you can have balance to things. And that hope, because that is coming from people that have depression, that have had suicidal tendencies, and then have now had the help. So it's not like, hey, let's put some spackle over it and see how long we can cover it up until something snaps again. But there really is some good, and there's so much investment right now with people learning and trying to get educated, but it's still a process. And I always feel like when an event like that happens, all the awareness is heightened. Everybody wants to make everything happen in 3 weeks. And
then it goes away.
And I said, I'd rather just the steady thing of make sure it's in our dialogue. But that's something that again, I like working arm in arm with good people that are trying to do the right things. Not a promise that we're going to have all the answers, but we're working for those answers. So that's something that's important, and I want our families and our organizations to realize that that's something that we're working towards.
We're surrounded by perfectionists. That's the biggest thing I've learned in all this stuff, and with the doctor's help and Hawk. I'm going to learn more. I was just a dumb old coach. I mean, a lot of this stuff is new to me.
We have, Mike, we have people ask why people umpire, why people coach, or, but this is our purpose, and we love what we do. And I feel for all the people that provide, but they don't have a purpose. And so they're living through other people, or they're living for the weekend. So the fact that we've done, now we're I'd say fulfilling the responsibilities that come with this, but the fact that we love what we do and we really are fortunate. And I really like this creativity. So the unknown of the frontier, you and I, I'll just throw this one out there. We're kind of going to be kind of like Lewis and Clark. We're going to go out there and we're going to explore some stuff, but we're really all for the intent of making the softball world a better place. And I want people to understand that. So, all right, we're going to finish this with what we call some fun podcast questions. So these are real simple answers. So if I was to ask you, like, your favorite sports star growing up, so who was your idol? Was there someone you emulated, posters, anything? You would have got their autograph? Who was your...
I had so many because I was a typical kid back then. I played
from football to basketball to baseball, right. So we did it. Right. So so let's start with baseball.
I was always a Dodger fan. And even though Drysdale and Koufax were a little bit before when I was really understanding of baseball, they were still iconic to me. I think that...
so what about something about Koufax or Drysdale and their mentality? Or so Drysdale hit one of mine, I hit two of yours.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny trying to instill that in pitchers now. I mean, the plate is yours to own, not for the batter to own. Yeah. And that mentality is, I know that it's frowned upon in many aspects, but
imposing your will is extremely important, and it's a tricky thing to teach because of, now you're a bully. Yeah. But that, and Koufax was the every game's a perfect game.
Yes.
When I lose that, it's the no-hitter. When I lose that, it's the shutout. When I lose that, it's the win.
Yeah.
Right.
But I grew up in an era when the Dodgers were real good with Steve Garvey, Ron Say, and Bill Russell, and Davey Lopes, and obviously enough, Mike Scioscia came in that. But they were such a unit. Yeah. And I always tended to draw towards the group, the units, the people that, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they had a core group of guys. Right. Their core group of guys got this stuff done. And it's just that stuff, it transcends time. The grouping of people that, the Patriots are the same way. This grouping of guys that it just, you can plug in different pieces all the time, but that's
not your typical experience.
It's just, and I think that's what I draw to more than individual great players. I think, the traditional, these empires, some of the things that my mom used to always, we'd watch USC games, and back then John McKay they would have these strong groupings of people. Those are traditional rivalries and traditional strengths, and those are things I always stuck to.
Remember I recall it as the greatest play I've ever seen when Joe Ferguson's stepped in front of Jimmy.
The throw
Rand,
against the A's.
The catcher went to center field. And
World
it wasn't,
Series,
and he stepped in front. I'm going to make this play. So I tell people, I go, that's the kind of asshole I was. I wasn't about the glory. I was about, look, we have to make this play, and you can't do it. So I'm going to do it for you.
I remember that like it was yesterday. I guess
right? I mean, that was, and you go back and you watch that. Mike, he puts that on right on the mark. It was a perfect strike. Now it would be obstruction. Now it would have been denied. Pete Rose wouldn't have a place in today's game.
Silly
so,
stuff.
Basketball.
Never. I grew up a Laker fan, obviously, and I was an adult when Magic Johnson was doing his thing. There's obviously Michael Jordan, considered the best basketball player ever, and all these guys now. Nobody lit up a building like Magic Johnson did. Nobody did. And
dribbling down the court.
It walking in a room, and he still does it today. Has a guy ever touched anything that has not been successful? And the minute I found out he was in the group that bought the Dodgers, I'm thinking, whew, thank God. Here we go.
About that?
Here we go. Yeah. They've been in 2 World Series since then. So
he's got to have something in the voice. So whether he understands business structure, the way this whole, but my gosh, I think when he's now back with the Lakers and just,
he treats people well. Yeah. He knows how to make people feel good. And that's such an important part of this. But, having an association with the Brady family, with Maya and my relationship with Mo, and being able to observe what has happened in New England the past 18, 19 years is, to me, one of the most astounding sports stories ever.
Sure.
And not that I'm biased, and I am, but nonetheless, and people hate to, they hate New England. They say they cheated. That's all BS.
That just comes with, it comes with anybody that's winning over and over.
Exactly. But what they have done is beyond great. It's beyond the realm of what exceptionalism is. Yeah. It's a different level. Yeah. I mean,
nobody's thinking 9. No. Nobody's thinking even he said that. I would never would have imagined.
No. Right. And so those are things that I pay attention to in my own quiet way. I don't, I'm not a talkative person outside of my realm on the softball field. I kind of stick to myself.
Was there anybody in basketball that you would emulate their shot when you're shooting?
I couldn't shoot. So I
used to think I was Gail Goodrich or someone like that. So
Jamal Wilkes, the 20-foot layup.
So you kind of answered this one, Lakers or Celtics?
Oh, Lakers.
You're Lakers, good.
Yeah.
Well, you answered this one already too, but I knew the answer on this one. Patriots or Rams?
Yeah, Patriots.
Were you a Rams fan growing up?
I was, until Georgia Frontieri killed her husband.
Oh, God. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't deal with that anymore.
So I know I wasn't the only displaced. I'm not going to go into this. I've got issues. So I was mad when they left, and my buddy told me, you're going to be sorry when they come back and we go to the Super Bowl and we're having a Super Bowl party.
I got to tell you something. So I flew from Chicago home, and I got home in the third quarter, and I walk into LAX, and you would have no idea that it was on the TV, but it wasn't a big deal. If that was the Lakers playing in the NBA Finals, not one person would have been at a gate. They would have been at the TVs. Yeah. The LA has not bought the Rams yet.
They would have had to have won, and then next year,
we'll
call them front
they
runners,
haven't bought in. Right. The Patriots fans have been at their 6th parade yesterday, and it was just a packed. It was a crazy day.
The highlight I saw was the video of Patriot fans beating up Patriot fans. It was like, look, they're so bored, they're beating each other up.
It's an incredible confluence of several things: Kraft and Belichick and Brady, but it'll never be matched.
Yeah, as you get into that tap test, the athlete type for Rock, and look into that. That's some sight, because then you there's a little insight to Belichick's kind of this system that he looks for, and it's not just the physical. He's checking boxes based on how they're testing. So that's another conversation, but that's something that I think is really important. So when Mike Stith is driving home after a game, what's your usual drive? So usually by yourself now?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yep. So do you turn on talk radio? Do you not listen to anything?
No, I listen to
review.
music. So I listen to music.
So you're not going over situations. It's done.
No, I'm thinking about going home, usually doing yard work, having dinner with my wife. We walk every Sunday night. I think about my granddaughters.
I love it.
I completely check out.
I love it.
I don't.
So you're not make a note.
No, I stop at Starbucks and get on the freeway, and I go home and work in the yard, ease my mind, and think about having dinner with Deanna. And then, usually on Sunday nights, I get a FaceTime call from my granddaughters and my daughter. And
outstanding.
That's what we do.
How many grandkids?
I have 2 grandkids.
The 2 grandkids, and one just born. Right?
Yeah.
So plenty of other stuff to think about.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
much more. Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that.
But that's the perspective, Tony, that people want to know. Well, and I can use this past season, you lose in the PGF championship game. And I don't know how you can relate to this. When I lost, I felt bad to lose, but it ended right there.
But you were
we did what we could do.
Yeah.
I walked away thinking we did everything we could do. We just, our mistake was losing the first game. And so I look back on that, but I've learned now that what we do is important to those people there. You don't want to shortchange your team, but trying to teach them that softball can't define you.
Yeah.
Who you are defines
absolutely.
you. And be a good softball player, but there's so many other things that'll define you, and make that be the one that everybody remembers.
Yeah. Twice for us, it was on the last play.
Yeah.
So I tell people, look, you're going over things afterwards. You go, okay, so we make the play, so we make the out.
Yeah.
We're that much better than that. It was, and so no, the story wouldn't have been like, oh, we're the greatest. Like, okay,
no.
So a 9-0, you're clearly above everybody else.
Yeah.
There was a weird satisfaction, and it's hard to explain because not many people will ever experience it, but it's a different type of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's the respect is still there. You didn't change on the food chain. The outcome was what it was on either side of it. You're on this side or that side, but ultimately it's a different type of win. So no, I get that because I was there a couple of times, and I tell people it's almost like I had to experience that to realize that that team was no less great. They didn't have that last little piece, but my God, it wasn't this feeling of like, it just didn't come away. So yeah, I relate to that. All right. So it's your birthday and you get to pick any meal that you want. Are you guys going out to a restaurant so you're going out?
Oh yeah.
That might be the first thing I don't like about you. Wow,
sushi.
So we're never doing that for lunch.
But we eat at home a lot. My wife cooks when obviously we work nighttime, so we're not able to do this that often. But Deanna cooks all the time. So Sunday nights we're always at home. If it was my birthday, because it's different, Tony, because my response is we're at home a lot. Yeah. So we'll go.
And if we're playing on my birthday, it's not like we're doing anything anyways.
Yeah. Right. So and usually I'm home. Last year I was in Florida on my birthday. So
is there good sushi and bad sushi? Can you tell instantly, or is it just to me it's all?
Coaching with Jim Wilson,
he knows a little bit about fish.
He knows about fish. I've learned a lot about sushi.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I didn't get much of a. Yeah, I wasn't all right, here's one for you. First concert you ever went to? This could be interesting.
Probably Styx. Yeah, and I went and saw him a couple weeks ago in Anaheim. I saw him in like 1978 or 78.
Like at the Forum or something?
At the Forum, yeah. And then I saw Jackson Browne and Neil Young several times when I was young. Saw Led Zeppelin, saw Van Halen when they were, in the Thrive. Great bands.
You just went up with a cool scale with a lot of guys out there right there. Are you kidding me?
Man. That was huge. Classic.
I love it. Growing up, your parents influenced? Did you have any rebellion in you growing up?
No.
Pretty boom? Never had the long hair, nothing like that. No, it's just always pretty.
No,
okay. So there wasn't there's not going to be a picture of you at 15. And we're going to go, damn, look at Stith.
When I was growing up, I wanted to play football at St. Paul. I grew up to fit that, and I lived it, and that's what I wanted to do.
Shit, that's pretty awesome. All right, last one. Most embarrassing childhood moment. Could be school, could be sports field, could be something at home.
I can tell you some interesting stories things that I look back on now that were important, but most embarrassing. I don't know. I can tell people stories like, I've used this story before. My first glove was a McGregor, and back then the McGregor gloves were the best, and they probably still are. But I used to have who was the sign? There was a classic glove that my dad handed down to me, and I went to my first practice in 8 and under, and it was Ceres Elementary School. And I get done with practice, and we going home. We're eating dinner, and Dad says, did the glove work out okay? Yeah, it was great. He goes, where is it? It's in my room.
He already knew.
You sure? He knew because I left my bag. We didn't have bat bags and stuff then. I had my stuff was left in the room that we had there. And he goes, where'd you go find a glove? Rico Petrocelli was the
from Boston.
Yeah. I was trying to think of it. But anyways, so I'll never forget. It had already gotten dark. So we drive back down to the school, and my dad parked the car with the headlights on, shining over the grass, and he says, go find the glove. And he sat in the car reading the paper while it took me like an hour, and I found that glove.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I watch today, I watch kids come in there. Like I own a training facility. The lost and found is full of gloves and jackets, brand new jackets. I'm thinking, are you kidding me?
They never come back and look for it.
They never catchers that leave their catcher's bags. Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
And so that I'm one of those guys that that glove, you better take care of that glove. That glove needs to not leave your side. Yeah. It's going to be your main tool. Yeah. And I learned at a very young age. Those are kind of the things that, was it embarrassing? Yeah. Was it embarrassing for me personally?
It was a teaching moment. It was a teaching moment. Sure. Well, here it's where are the scissors? Seek and thou shalt find.
Yeah.
And they'll look at me and they go, everything's so unorganized. I go, then think like an unorganized person. So it's not going to be where you think it would.
Yeah.
So think of the last person that an unorganized person would have used the scissors and start there. And eventually, and the parents will be in here and they'll be like, you got this. I go, just watch. I go, you have to understand. I go, these dads that talk to their kids about batting through their senior year, I go, these kids can't find their dorm room when you drop them off. I go, so all of this stuff is later on, there's less problems in the coach's office because they know how to find things. They know how to set up a camp. They know how to like lock something after they go in. It's little stuff like that. It's all life training. So, gosh, Mike, this went a little longer because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. So, listen, we're going to do this again. We'll figure a few months we'll come again. You and I are going to meet a little bit on side, and look forward to some people out of the Batbuster Firecracker camp that will pull in and make this. We've got a bigger table in another room if we need to open up the room a little bit. But really appreciate you coming out.
My pleasure.
Listen, people, ignore what we're doing. Don't pay attention. Check on it. But if you're smart, just keep your eye open. And like I said, we're really working for the sport, and it's been a pleasure. So I appreciate you coming in. And
it was great.
Looking forward
as
to
always.
the future.
And we're not merging. We're not doing anything like that. We're going to do some great things together.
We're going to cover that.
We're going to provide more opportunities for the families and get them more involved in our sport.
So keep your eye on it.
Yep.
Awesome. Appreciate it, bud. All right. Take care.
Okay.